What attracted me to the program was, or to the movie was, I had heard from my agent for about 2 years that Darren Aronofsky was interested in working with me, and I said, "Who's Darren Aronofsky?" And because he's pretty much sort of like this cult kind of independent, real arty farty kind of guy that, and I mean that complimentary, that Hollywood has sort of been trying wooing for years to come out and make big, commercial kind of movies. And the more I saw a couple of his movies, I saw Pi and I saw Requiem, and I was very impressed with the integrity and the intention that he had with his sort of filmmaking, and all the information when I asked people whose opinions I respect, that I got back, it was the same kind of vibe or information that, let's say, you'd hear about Francis Coppola, young Francis Coppola, who I worked with years ago on Rumblefish, and then I met Darren.
The Wrestler started, I would say, about 5 years ago. After we did Requiem, Darren and I were both out in LA, and he was getting ready to leave to go shoot The Fountain. And he came to me and said, "I want to do a film about a professional wrestler, and I want you to help me develop it." So we just couldn't decide who this wrestler was, what he was about, or anything like that. And we did some research, and I read some books of wrestlers, started going to some shows. And the one thing we realized is that we couldn't set this world in mainstream wrestling. There's just too many licensing issues, too many control issues, and so we had to figure out where to set the story.
Then we started to think of it as a period piece before Vince McMahon had organized all the territories into one. But we realized it was going to be a low-budget film, so that wasn't a possibility. So me and Scott started to go to these independent shows that exist all over the country. And one of the things that really fascinated us was, these older guys, these people that were our heroes when we were kids, guys who used to sell at Madison Square Garden, the LA Forum, 20,000, 50,000 people were now working for $500, a night, in front of 200 people on a good night.
And here they are still wrestling. You'd think that they, were retired, that they were sitting on boatloads of money, like other athletes. And when we dug a little deeper and realized that these guys wrestling for, killing themselves for $100 a night in front of 200 people, and most of them, I won't say all of them, but most of them are broke, and they have no health insurance, they've got no retirement, they've got no benefits, and they're just doing this to just stay alive.
My first meeting with Darren was quite interesting because I'd heard so much about him, and it was I was very curious because the information I got on him was so impressive. I heard how smart, how my shrink even told me, he goes, "Oh, Darren Aronofsky, he's very smart." I also heard things about him that made me very eager to meet him. I heard he was his own man. He does not compromise. He's smarter than the rest of us. And the information I got was really interesting. And so when I met him, he came walking across the street, and I actually was sitting in a restaurant in the Village, and I didn't know what he looked like, and I was like looking across the street, and because one thing I don't do is I don't meet people in offices. So I said, you got to meet on neutral ground. So I picked the restaurant, and I don't even meet people on neutral ground. I meet them in my territory. So especially guys like him. I didn't want to meet him in his office or his production company. So he agreed to meet me, and I see this guy pull up on a bicycle with a crash helmet, and I go, "Oh, that's got to be him if he's wearing a crash helmet." And he sort of like walked across the street like his balls were too big for his pants, and he had this kind of air on his face, this kind of like he knows something that you don't know, And he came over, he introduced himself. He right away started saying, "Well, you've ruined your career for the last 15 years. You've self-destructed." He goes, "And I'm trying to do a movie with you, and I can't raise a dime on your name. And if I do this movie with you, you're going to listen to everything I tell you. You're going to do everything I say. You can never disrespect me in front of the crew, and I can't pay you." And I thought, well, he's smart, and he's got a lot of balls. This is the kind of guy I want to work with. And then he gave me the script.
I really wanted to be open to what was happening in the moment. It was the first time I've done it that way, and it was exciting and fun. It really worked for the project.
Action! Which one of you girls woke me up?
It was by the seat of our pants the whole time because we had 37 locations in 37 days. Mickey's trailer was in this trailer park, which was Darren wanted grass, first of all. He wanted, he didn't want it to be this paved, nice thing with street signs. We found this one little plot of grass. They had an empty trailer. There was about 5 of them. I ended up crawling into a couple that were boarded up, but they were just destroyed. And then we found this one, the one that we used, which was perfect, and we dragged it over to this plot of land and set it down and did the plumbing and the thing and just cleaned it and worked on it for, probably a good month.
When I saw the script, I was a little disappointed because, coming from a sports background, I didn't want to do, I thought, oh, a wrestling movie. I thought maybe I'd do, some kind of dramatic movie with him or a love story or, I don't know, a science fiction movie or something. But, the wrestling story was very, me coming from a professional boxing background, I had looked down on that sport because it's pre-orchestrated, it's predetermined, the outcome, and it's like wrestlers. I thought, oh, no, they're like, and then I read it and I thought, well, I've spent a lot of time in gyms and many more years than he has pumping iron and in gyms, and I didn't buy a lot of the dialogue. So I said to him, I said, look, I want to make this, if you want me to do all those things you've asked me to do. I said, you have to trust me. I want to make this personal. And so I said to him, how I would say, I said, the scenes with the young daughter, I said, this is what I would say. These are things in my life that I have said. Sometimes when there's somebody that you love a lot and who's getting ready to leave you, you only have like a few minutes to get your point across. That there's an air of desperation. There's that if you can't move this thing, you're going to lose her. Something that you love. So I made it personal, and I recalled moments that I had with my wife when she was taken off, and I used it because I don't have a daughter. So I just made a different change there, and Darren went with the flow with me on that, and so he let me rewrite all those scenes, and he let me write the speech at the end where I said, well, I never thought I'd be in here again, and I don't walk as good as I used to. I don't talk as good as I used to. I don't have as many teeth in my mouth, and I'm not as pretty as I was anymore. And I was mainly, and then I have to go on about, they told me I was washed up. They told me I was finished, and but I was really making it personal, talking about not being able to work in the acting business for 14 years. So he rolled with that, and then also the taboo subject of steroids. I said, listen, I've been in the gyms. I've heard everybody talk. I said, we have to incorporate this in because it's all about bodybuilding, steroids, how you look, take suntan and peroxide bottles.
The time approaches that will, with due decision, make us know what we shall say we have and what we owe. So we're going to find out in a minute.
We didn't know how it was going to work with the, with the live crowd and live stunts. It was, it was dangerous. It was a real risk.
Are you ready for WXW?
I think with Randy, the character in the movie, you're fighting a man who he's 10 years past his prime. He has, at one time in the 80s, he was a big star. He was in Madison Square Garden wrestling in front of, thousands of people. He had a wife at one time and a daughter. And when you're on the circuit like this, like with any sports, you travel a lot and they drive a lot. They team up together and they share gas money and they go to different venues. And along the way, you lose contact with the ones you love. You lose contact with the ones you're supposed to be responsible for, and your loved ones, your wife, your daughter. And along this journey, he self-destructed, and he got older, and time's gone by, and I think it transcends just the wrestling sport. You could make a case for a footballer, who's moving on in age, and then they sell them to a team that's not too good, or a different league, or a boxer that just says, I just need one more fight, but. He's already. My old boxing trainer said to me one time when I was very young, I was asking him about a question, and he said, Mickey, every night, every fighter in one night gets old. And for these men who are sportsmen, they have a regimen. This is the main thing. They have a regimen. They get up, they do their run, they go to the gym, they have a fight coming up, they train. When they don't have that in their life anymore, whether it be wrestling, football, or whatever, a lot of them become lost souls, and it's a painful existence which relates to Randy, because you're living in what I have been told, and what I've gone through. You're living in a state of hopelessness, and you're living almost in shame. I remember times. Over a 10-year period, I'd go into a 7-Eleven to buy a pack of cigarettes or something. There'd be several people in the store, and some idiot in the middle of the night would go, "Hey, didn't you used to be? Aren't you who you're?" And they say it real loud. It's like, Jesus Christ, let me get out of here, And sort of that's like how Randy, like, there's a scene in the supermarket where it's sort of like that.
If you're working with really great actors, you can't ever know what they're going to do. You want them to do, what they do best, which is, surprise you. And that's always the best part. And, I got that all the time from Mickey and Marisa and Evan. They were all very, very inventive. They all brought a lot of color to their roles, and I think that was, bringing, casting the right people.
The physical thing was very difficult, especially this was a movie that was a $5 million movie. There wasn't a lot of money in it. And so Darren made a very interesting choice. He chose to shoot it in a very objective documentary style way, handheld camera. So we could move quickly because of the budget. I mean, a lot of the wrestling matches that we did were all done during live shows, and we would run in handheld. There'd be a match on, and then we'd run in, and Darren would announce to the audience, "We're doing this. This is my name's Darren Aronofsky," and we do it, and we do the matches right in front of a live, crazy, like wrestling audience, and it was a lot of pressure because I had, these guys are really big dudes, I had to like put on 28 pounds, but I had to put on 28 pounds of muscle, not fat. And I had close to 7.5 months to do that, and then 4 months to crash course to learn how to wrestle.
Darren made a conscious decision on this film, unlike his other films, not to storyboard, and to just be open, along with Maurice and everybody else in the set, to whatever the circumstances were and whatever was going to happen in these real world scenarios that he had set up. And storyboarding would limit the options and the openness to whatever was going to happen, whatever Mickey came up with, or whatever the other people around who weren't actors came up with. We just needed to always have that freedom and for people to be prepared for everything. The deli sequences were all real people. I mean, there were actors and then there were real people. There was always a mix.
We saw Hulk Hogan was a bad guy. That's how long ago it was. And he was fighting Tony Atlas, which you took a picture of me with Tony Atlas. Right. Remember that big guy? And Hulk Hogan picked up Tony Atlas to drop him on the top rope on his balls, and he missed. And then Tony Atlas pulled down Hulk Hogan's tights, showed his butt, and then picked him up over his head, Tony Atlas, huge guy, and dropped him on his balls. And the place went crazy.
And Darren said, "Dad, you said it was phony. Is this phony?" And 20,000 people turned around.
Not 20,000. A woman in front of us stood and said,
yeah,
screamed at him. This is a grown lady. I remember screamed at you. This isn't fake.
Robin, Randy.
It was a different time in wrestling.
You know, I walk around at, 193 pounds, and I got up to 228 pounds, and I started to move differently. I was eating several meals a day. I was lifting very heavy weights. I had hired this Israeli commando, this trainer who was brutal with me. It was like, 3 hours, split routine, 3 hours of working out, 6, 7 meals. Every day he would cue me on what I was eating, and maybe some nights, because I went back home to Miami to train, I'd be out in the clubs, at night, running around, and I'd walk into the gym, and he'd look at me and he'd go, "F you." And I said, "What?" He goes, "You were out last night drinking." I go, "What?" "Yeah." I said, "Do I have to do cardio today?" He goes, "Go." And it was like, man. But I hired somebody who was strict with me. And because he was a military guy, especially because he was an ex-Israeli soldier, he wouldn't have me, he wouldn't have it.
Back under your ones.
That's how I'm going to direct you from now on. My head and your shoulders. Move! Come on, move! Hairnet! Hairnet!
This is nothing like documentary filmmaking. Absolutely nothing.
Well, this is life, right? This is our life.
No, this is not life. This is constructed life.
Basically, he's cutting, and he's going to go like this on this side, and then we're going to cut on that to like here, and the blood's going to spray out, and we're going to come up on him, and he's going to have the prosthetic on, and we'll have the blood there. If you're, this is, hold on, your right thumb is your right thumb, so go, let's see, yeah, go like that. Yeah, there you go, that's it.
And
yeah, that's it.
Randy, what's wrong? Randy, what's wrong? Shit, we have to call. Get away from me, you little. We have to call 911.
The first thing I did, it was a really intense scene. It's when Mickey comes to my house, and Darren came up to me and said, we're not even going to, you're not going to say hi to Mickey. We're not going to rehearse. Just walk out the door. We're going to shoot it. And I said, okay. I said, thank God I know my lines. And we just went in and did it. And I like working like that. Things happen by mistake, and they end up being incredible and just great little jewels that you captured on film. And so there was a lot of improv, but I was warned that you might never know what's coming at you.
Hey, Stephanie. How you doing?
What do you want?
I have to talk to you.
I can't talk right now.
No, I really need to talk to you.
I gotta go to school.
You going to school?
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Listen, something happened. I had a heart attack. And I just thought I should tell you.
You get the estranged daughter, and then you get the stripper. Superficially, those are sort of cliched elements. But the reality is that's having met with and talked to enough of these guys, most of them have estranged daughters. Most of them have broken relationships with just because they've always put their careers first. Very few of them have happy, stable family lives, and a lot of them really, really love going to strip clubs. Often things become cliches because they're actually true, and that is actually true. These guys, they show up a few hours before a match. They got a few hours to kill. They're hungry. They go to the strip club, hit the buffet, and get a few lap dances.
She was a stripper. There was no way to escape it because, wrestlers, when they're done with their matches in real life, that's what they do. They go to the strip club to spend their money. But B, the similarities between how a stripper works with her body and how a wrestler works with his body are very similar. They're both up on stage. They both create a fantasy for the audience. They both have fake names. Age is their great enemy. And so the parallels were really interesting.
Mickey is all those things I just said. He's kind, he's compassionate, he's warm, he wears his heart on his sleeve, he's a friend, and he's a sympathetic guy, but he's still Mickey. He's still very strong-willed, he's still very determined, he's still very opinionated, and he's not the kind of guy that's going to back down. So, and that's part of what you respect and like about him. He's passionate in his convictions, and when he knows that he wants something, or he knows that he doesn't want something, or someone wrongs him or something like that, he's gonna stand up for what he wants. He's gonna stand up for what he believes in, and there's nothing wrong with that. As difficult as it was at times, I think he always believed in it, And I think that's what kept him around and kept him hungry and kept him passionate about the material. And I think he always believed in Darren, and I think he always believed in what Darren was getting out of him, you know, as far as the performance goes. You know, and yeah, there were a lot of grumblings on set, and there were hard days. I mean, look, we're shooting in you know, in the dead of winter in the middle of Jersey, and you know, we don't even have, you know, production trailers. You know what I mean? I mean, you were there. I mean, it was as bare bone, and it's, you know, 0 degrees outside, and you know, Mickey's on take number 12, and he thinks he nailed it on take number 4. And there's many of those difficult moments we had on set. I think we had a lot of fun moments on set.
Mickey's, you know, Mickey's tough. You know, he's no walk in the park, and I think, you know, to make him really, really do his work, you got to really push him. You know, he's like one of those guys in high school who completely coasted through and got B's and did absolutely no work. You know, because he's so in Mickey's case, so talented that he doesn't need to do the work. He can put his feet up on the desk and just sort of coast through his roles. And I think, but because he is so talented, if you kind of push him or inspire him or challenge him, the work just gets richer and richer the more you do that.
You know, I've been out of the loop for about 14 years, so it was, you know, they kept, you know, in the last several years since I started to get back into it, you know, they'd give me a day here, 2 weeks there. I mean, my reputation was terrible, and I behaved terribly, and I'm the one that was the cause of it all. And so, you know, Robert Rodriguez would give me a job here for a few days, or Tony Scott would give me a job, or Stallone would give me a job. Sean Penn put me in The Pledge in a really good role for one day, and you know, and then gradually, because it was about being accountable. And, you know, most of my career I wasn't accountable, and I didn't care about rules or repercussions, and I paid the price for it. It feels a little surreal because when I had a career for a little while, and then it was gone. And when you're like kind of like a somebody, you know, and then you're a nobody for 14 years, and you're living, as my shrink would tell me, in a hopeless situation because it's out of your hands. Because it was never about my acting; it was about my behavior. So so living in a hopeless situation, losing my career, my wife, my house, my money, my brother, it was living in a hopeless situation with only hope. And you can go a long way on hope, even when you're like in the desert or in the dark and there's no daylight. So with all this happening now, I mean, after all these years, I'm very thankful, I'm grateful. You know, somebody said to me the other day, oh, now you can really stick it to Hollywood and tell them, you know, I don't go off. And I don't, that's not the way I feel. Because I'm the one that burnt all the bridges. I had pieces inside of me that were broken, and I didn't have the knowledge or the information to fix them until I went and got help.
Instead of like a reactive documentary, like a real documentary where you react to something, we knew what the character was going to do, so we were a little bit ahead of them, you know. Yet, you know, with Mickey, you never really fully know what he's going to do, and you have to be ready to roll with that. But, you know, we knew basically his intention, so we were able to sort of kind of tango and dance with him.
When I used to box, I used to come out to Sweet Child of Mine. And I remember we were doing a scene, you know, in front of the live show, and I was behind the curtains there, and it kind of reminded me of when I was during my fighting days. And I said to him right away, could you put Sweet Child of Mine on? And they found it, and they blared through the thing, and I felt like the old days. And so that all worked. So I called Axel up, and I explained the situation with the budget, and he gave us Sweet Child of Mine.
You can make any movie for any amount of money. I mean, that's the easy answer. And you know, we had to devise a plan that would work with the money we had, and you know, we devised one and we stuck to it.
What are you doing? That's my move, and this is how it's done. Get off. 1, 2. Don't push it through. Okay.
Mickey here?
Go down, Mickey.
No, yeah, go down with me.
Come on, hit me. Hit me. Here.
Down, roll over. All right, roll over and keep out. Good.
Here.
Where you going?
Want me to go keep
Yeah.
out this way?
No, I think you could. You stay over here. Yeah, come over here. Go right over here.
Here.
Yeah, keep going. Stop.
We want Ring of Honor. This is the climax of the film. This is the last scene of the film. So, this is right at the beginning of the match, okay? Later in the night, we're going to do all the pieces of the match. We're breaking it down into pieces. And the first piece we're doing is he's just finished that speech that the stunt double did. When I call action, if you guys can all just be clapping politely, because he just gave a heartfelt speech. And if anyone wants to cry, you can cry too, because it was very heartfelt, okay? It's his big speech, okay? And then when the Ayatollah attacks him, we boo, and then we're into it, okay? And I know you guys know what to do, all right? So we're going to do one take now. We're going to do a couple more, and then we're out of here, and you'll have some more wrestling.
Okay. Armand is wrapped. Picture wrapped, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, let me tell you, a long time ago, I learned to make pain my friend.
Here we are. What's the date? March what? March 17th. March 17th. March 18th. The last day of principal photography of The Wrestler. And we have one more shot where Mickey Rourke pulls the barbed wire out of his open wound. And it's been quite an adventure, I'd say. We've all gotten to know and love the beautiful state of New Jersey, the Garden State. And we've all gotten to love staple guns. And we've all learned to love Mickey Rourke. And we've all learned to love each other.
After about 6 days, I really felt that I went, this movie's going to be special. This feels like the best work I've ever done. And this feels like one of the best directors I've ever worked with after 6 days. And when the movie was over, I was so proud of it. And I hit certain emotional moments. When I met Darren, I knew that why he wanted me. I knew he wanted me to also open up and revisit some very dark, personal, painful places, in my life, and as well as the physicality. And actually, when I got replaced on the movie early on, because they couldn't raise the money on me, I was relieved that I got replaced. I was the only one who was happy about it, because I thought, man, this is a lot of work. There's going to be a lot of hard work for no money. And I was broke at the time. And I remember doing the emotional scenes, and they all, he challenged me. He kept pushing my buttons. Or if I was not using, there were certain substitutions that I was using, whether it be my late brother or my ex-wife, and so everything became very personal.